Valerie,
Hi.
hi. Hey, girlfriend.
Hi.
This is fun and exciting. I'm glad we made a little bit of time to talk today.
Yes, me too.
Okay, so for anyone that doesn't already know you, first off, you have a great name.
So do you. Why I like you. Kidding.
Yes, just kidding. Why don't we start by telling everybody your first and last name and where you live and a little bit about yourself?
Sure, yeah. Um, my name is Valerie Libby, and I am currently a fertility fellow. So I finished my residency in OBGYN in Dallas, Texas at Parkland Hospital, and now I am in my fellowship, my second year of 3 years for infertility. Well, it's reproductive endocrinology and infertility. And I am currently at University Hospitals, Case Western in Cleveland, Ohio. And I'm
Nice.
originally from Atlanta, Georgia.
Great, great. Well, thanks for that quick, heads up bio. Now, we met at a convention, which was super fun in California,
Uh-huh.
and instantly clicked. Well, not only because we have the same name, but because you're an egg freezer.
Yeah, I am.
So, do you feel like your profession and working in the medical space and being a doctor is what pushed you to freeze your own eggs, or were you always thinking about it? Like, how old are you?
Yeah, so I am 33, and I honestly didn't even know what egg freezing or what IVF was or anything in my field was until I started medical school. So I feel so fortunate that I chose to be a doctor, and I found out about this through that, and I am so sad that it was so hard it took that for me to figure this out, because there's so many women that don't have this opportunity, that don't have this exposure and education. So I found out about it because I was actually going to be a pediatrician one summer. I was going to do research in pediatrics in Atlanta at the CDC, and my personal OBGYN, I was about 28 at the time, and she said, or maybe I was even 27, she said, you should rotate, do a summer in IVF. I know you don't know what that is. And I was like, what is that? And she said, it's where you can, help people get pregnant. And I was like, oh my gosh, I love psychology. I love babies. Maybe this is the field for me. So I left pediatrics, spent the summer at a clinic in Atlanta that was amazing. And that's when I realized this whole field, and I realized, oh my gosh, the most important thing in the world to me is family. And I come from like a family where reproduction is huge. So I knew that I was, single at the time and 27, and that it was a possibility. And so then when I was in residency, I already knew I wanted to be a doctor, an IVF doctor. And I started doing research with a IVF doctor in Dallas, and he offered to, obviously be my doctor freezing my eggs. So I immediately, I knew that was what I wanted to do. I got my AMH checked at the age of 27 when I was in New York for 1 year of residency, and it was really good. It was really high, and that's the level of my anti-Mullerian hormone level. It was about 7, or it was super high. It was like too high to be like in the normal range. It was like probably like PCOS high. And I was like, okay, well, that's good. I don't have anything more to worry about. But I was concerned because my mother had menopause early at the age of 43. So I was concerned that I was going to hit menopause early. And, the average age of menopause is like around 50. And being less than 40 is, they call premature ovarian insufficiency or premature ovarian failure or premature menopause. And I was concerned that I would be going into that early. And, at the age of almost 30, I wanted to make sure that I, had the ability to freeze eggs. So I checked that level, and it was high. But then when I moved to Dallas and I was working with a different ARIA infertility doctor, I checked it again, and it was very low. It was 1.6. And I learned that AMH levels can vary depending on what lab you're at, which is not good. So you really want to make sure you're going to the same lab. And even though you might have a really good level at a clinic, if you have some sort of inclination or family history, you really want to get it checked again. And there are things that can affect your AMH level and can make it false, like being on birth control pills or being on any sort of hormones. So I'm not sure if I was on them at the time, but I checked it again. It was 1.6, and then I knew that I needed to freeze. So I did, and I've done it already 3 times. So
Wow.
I'm in my actually 4th round because I haven't had enough eggs where I feel comfortable, like,
Yeah,
you
that
know,
you would
not.
have your family plan based on the number of eggs that you have. Yeah, I understand. Because you're so knowledgeable in this field, why don't we explore a little bit and tap into your knowledge
Yes.
about what is normal for an AMH range, and just kind of unpack this whole AMH could be totally different for depending on what lab you're in.
Follow their AMH levels, and those are people, and a very big proportion of our patients that have polycystic ovarian syndrome. So their AMH levels are on a different scale, and not even a scale that you can correlate with ovarian reserve or how long you have until menopause. In those people, their AMH levels are usually, I guess, on average, I would say around 5, between 4 and 7, sometimes much higher, sometimes just 3, but still, if they're diagnosed with polycystic ovary syndrome, then we wouldn't look at their AMH, except, we wouldn't typically look at their AMH level to decide whether or not they were close to menopause. If you do not have PCOS, AMH is often used as a marker of ovarian reserve. And AMH is secreted by the little follicles in your ovary that are just kind of sitting there quiet. And the more of those little quiet follicles that have eggs inside of them you have, the higher that number will be. So you want it to be as high as possible. So if you don't have PCOS, then it depends on, as you get closer to menopause, it will decrease. The highest it will ever be in your lifetime is usually around the age of 20 to 25, I would say. And that's what the data that we have that show the average AMH at that age is actually 2.5 or so, which doesn't seem that high. And I often see patients in their 20s with AMHs between 2 and 3.5, I would say. And that's awesome. They're probably good to go. Between the ages of 30 and 35, it goes down to like 1.7 on average. And then between the ages of 35 and 45, it's probably around 1.3. Sometimes we'll have a patient come in, she's 28, she's concerned about being close to menopause, and we'll check her AMH level. She doesn't have PCOS. We'll check her AMH level, and it's 0.6 or 0.7, and we get very concerned. We would say, very much encourage her to freeze or go through IVF. Now, AMH is, really only supposed to be used to tell us how well a person is going to respond to medications when we give them stimulation medications, like how many eggs they're going to respond very well. So we start with a lower dose. But many doctors, almost every REI doctor around the country uses it as a marker to help us know, what their ovarian reserve is. So that's the typical AMH rundown. And then there are other markers of ovarian reserve that we look at. And so if you have PCOS, you can look at, there are other markers of ovarian reserve. One is antral follicle count, which is just, an ultrasound that you look at both ovaries, kind of early on in your period, and you just see how many small follicles you have. And that count has also been really good at showing us, how robust someone's ovaries are. And then, the old traditional method of checking ovarian reserve was with an FSH level, which is follicle stimulating hormone. And we usually check that on day 3 of your period. Like after your period starts, day 3 would be the 3rd day.
Yeah.
And that level, that is kind of the lower it is, actually, the better you are. But that level we've kind of gotten away from. So we've shifted more towards anti-Mullerian hormone and antral follicle count.
Yeah. Those are two of the most stable positions for monitoring how you're doing at this progression and stage. But I think you mentioned a really great point that we can really help or hurt our fertility. So there are key things that you can do to help stimulate better fertility. And do you have any quick tips on things that we should start doing or stop doing?
We as in patients
Yeah,
or
just women in general, like what we can do to help our fertility.
Yeah, I mean, help our fertility. I mean, I think really, unfortunately, a lot of our fertility is due to our genes. I think that it's really important to have reproductive autonomy and not feel pressured in relationships. And it seriously changes your outlook on relationships when you have when you are enabled and have eggs frozen. Like before you have your eggs frozen, you're 30 and you're like kind of nervous. You're like, I have to find a man. I have to find a man soon. This is my timeline. And you might choose the wrong person and settle.
Or stick
and I think
with the
that's
wrong person because you are worried about starting over.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. And once you freeze your eggs and you have that insurance policy, it changes and you feel so much more empowered and like you have the ability, you have time. It really buys you, in my opinion, it buys you about 4 years. So like I would say, freeze your eggs as early as possible. In fact, like I think it's really, I'd like to talk to women that, are, in college, like, trying to pursue a career, and tell them, like even now, even then, I mean, it might be premature. I mean, they might meet a man when they're 28 and, be fine and not need that, but it's just a really good insurance policy. And the younger eggs that you have, the less eggs you need, so the less money it will cost because, so not only do some insurances cover IVF, so if you work in tech, sometimes they cover it if you have a cancer diagnosis or a genetic diagnosis for a need to freeze your eggs, like some sort of genetic thing that you want to make sure that you're
like the Jewish population has some genes that are.
Yes. Some genes, like you can test the embryos once you fertilize the eggs and before you implant them. Mm-hmm. So those sometimes are covered, and sometimes the clinic that you go to will have a fund to help fund those situations. So cancer diagnosis, genetic diseases, even if you're a veteran, things like that. Mm-hmm. If you don't have those or work for a tech company, if you don't have that, sometimes your regular insurance plans might say, we'll cover 50% of everything,
or the sometimes hormones, they'll say, or even like the copays. It's just a copay.
Yeah, or they'll say we'll cover the medications and the testing, and that's it's money. It's not the bulk of it, but it's still something. So you should definitely explore that and explore really different clinics, because there's like one clinic out there that I just love their freezing egg policy. They have this plan where you can say, okay, I am 33 years old. I definitely want 30 eggs. No matter what, I don't need 40. I don't need 20. I definitely don't want 20. I want 30. But I know in the back of my mind that to get 30 eggs for a 33-year-old, you're probably going to have to go through multiple rounds. And each round might cost $15,000.
Right.
So there's some places that offer these plans that assure you to have 30 eggs or 20 eggs or 40 eggs. So you pay a flat fee for that number of eggs. And then you are guaranteed that you can go through as many retrievals as you need to get that number of eggs. And that is such a good plan.
They bulk the cycles.
Yeah. So you pay a flat fee and you're guaranteed that number of eggs, which is great because usually you will need to go through more than one round.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm a 2-time egg freezer, and actually I'm thinking about doing it again as well. So
yeah.
Okay, so let's dive into you a little bit and learn, like, okay, so have you feel like you understand the patients better that you're talking to now that you're the patient yourself? And you are doing some coaching or education seminars and trying to help women learn from your own fertility journey? So tell us a little bit about your plans.
Yes. I am a huge advocate for egg freezing. I hope to really tap into, like I think I mentioned earlier, like the college and the graduate student populations in the cities that, in all the cities. But I try to, going through this process has made me realize how difficult it is.
Yeah.
Like not only emotionally, because for me, it actually wasn't difficult emotionally. I mean, I think that just being around patients like this all the time, I get it. I'm excited about it. And just my personal look, I'm excited. But for me, it is the actual understanding injections. I mean, it is so difficult to learn how to mix the medicines. I mean, even as a doc.
I know, me too. I've been doing this for 10 years or almost 15 years, and I still am like, shoot, did I mix the hormones right?
Yeah, yeah, and it's really complicated. You've never. First of all, you've usually never injected yourself.
No.
So you're scared of needles.
We're our own drug dealers.
Yeah, you're scared of injecting yourself, and then you have to figure out how to like mix these medicines in these vials, and sometimes they give you inaccurate. Yeah, and crazy and just not, thorough instructions. So I have always gone to it's Freedom Fertility's website for the instruction videos. And a lot of clinics don't tell you about that, but I really think that those are the best instruction videos you can have.
We should make our own instruction videos. Valerie and Valerie instruction videos.
I'm like
learn from V&V.
Yeah. No, that's such a great idea. I'm injecting right now, and
so
just
what
like
day of cycle are you on now?
What day? I'm on day 3.
Okay, so you just started, yeah,
I just started, and I am. I mean, even I have to like look at the sheet, to teach me how to inject, and this is my 4th time, and I'm a doctor.
I know.
It's really. So I definitely feel for the patients, and I understand that you can't just go over it once, and you can not go over it 2 months before their stimulation. You need to go over it the day of their stimulation, the day they start. Give them the videos.
That person you can like call on speed dial. You know what I mean? Like that nurse that will text you back right away. Right.
And I am on call like right now, for example, for our practice. So and I get tons of phone calls about like, well, they actually didn't give me this. Like last night I got a phone call. I opened up the syringe to trigger myself and there was nothing in it. And then, and I'm like, what do you do? So I have to, figure out how to troubleshoot that. Sometimes they'll have the wrong syringe to inject. So they won't understand how to, and it's very difficult. Yeah. So I've definitely, I am so empathetic to how difficult it is. I mean, if it's difficult for me, it is so difficult for patients.
Right.
And I mean, just every time I can send a patient before their retrieval or their retrievals, I say, I've personally done this 3 times. So I totally get what you're about to experience. Every woman is different. For me, it was a great time to just go to sleep for a couple hours. In my practice, we put people to sleep, but, or IV sedation, but some don't,
like
and I was fine after, but some women really aren't. And and all 3 times I've been fine, but I know that everybody's totally different. And some women really do feel that bloating. I didn't feel that, but some people really do get that bloating. Some people get emotional. Some people get discharged. Some people, have some really bad cramping.
It's a personalized effect on your just how you feel in general, and sometimes I think there's a little bit of a placebo effect too, where we know we're giving ourselves these shots, and so our brain is consciously thinking like these are our future children. Like just look at some of the TV shows and how they talk about egg freezing, like the Housewives of New York. Tinsley is freezing her eggs, and she filmed part of it, getting the pictures with her doctors and the little eggies, pictures. And like, she was so emotional because it's kind of like the first, I always say it's like the pre-home movie of your kids being like conceived.
Yeah. Totally. And, just like in, so the eggs that we ovulate for, let's just have a normal period this month. The egg that we release this month is an egg that started to grow actually 3 months ago. And just like men with sperm, the sperm that they release today is sperm that they actually created 3 months ago.
Right.
So, so really what we do the 3 months prior to your egg retrieval
is the most important.
It may impact the future baby that you have. So make smart decisions, and so, I think it's been interesting.
Yeah. Well, we need to explore this whole idea of doing some Facebook Lives together or going through hormone meds and learning from all of our great education platforms that we're building. And
Yes.
it's just going to grow from here because I think women are seeing the value. And it's interesting because like the news is starting to like report on more positive stories with egg freezing. Because I think, gosh, how did we not realize this is so beneficial? Like it really does buy us time. And it makes us more like able to kind of be focused on the things that are happening right now and not being so like it calms that fear, that panic of the baby making train that we're responsible for.
Yeah, and it's really sad that there is such a taboo around this, you know, like I didn't actually feel it for many years. And then when I was deciding to go public with my Instagram account and like talk about my experience, for a second, I thought to myself, maybe there will be some people that will say, you know, wow, that's like kind of sad that she's 33 and she's still single and she's not married, you know, and I also thought about my current partner and, you know, and like, what was he going to feel about, you know, me going through this process and also being public about it and everything. And luckily he's been wonderful and supportive and an advocate. He's also in medicine, but I think that if he wasn't, obviously that would not be a good relationship because this is such a part of my life and I advocate for this. But
well, I get called the crazy egg freezing lady. So, I mean, I guess it's the new modern term instead of the cat lady.
Whatever. It's just, honestly, it's just insurance because honestly, I feel like we are so lucky and I have pity on people that, you know, don't take advantage of these opportunities. If they don't have the financial means, I totally get it. It's very expensive. But if they do and they're choosing not to do this, I mean, I feel bad because it could mean if family's important to you, it could mean like the most important thing in the world, you know?
Right.
And like they might regret this one day. And so well,
you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. And I think it's just about giving yourself all the information so you can make the most educated choice for your future. And it's a personalized choice. Like, we're not saying everybody should freeze. But if you think that you really want a family, this is the best option and tool that we have in the toolbox right now.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think it's really important for us to continue to talk about it and try to
stigmatize everything.
Yeah.
And demystify it. Like, it's really, I think just people need to see what it really looks like, you know?
Yeah. I mean, and once you go to a clinic, you're like, oh my gosh, everyone here is just like me. Like, there are so many girls like me. And,
well, like, you know, I'm 36, and so we're roughly around the same age. And the first time I froze was at 33. So, yeah. I mean, we are very similar. I mean, we also have the first name, but you know.
You look so young. I can't believe you honestly look much younger than me. But
see, this is the tricky part. It doesn't matter how you look. Your biology is your biology. I have great genes. My mom's looks very young too. So props to my mom.
Are you like Greek or something?
No, everyone thinks I'm Greek because my last name's Landis, but I'm actually like Dutch.
Oh, well, good to be Dutch, I guess.
Yeah.
Hopefully your eggs are like, you know, 25-year-old, 33-year-old or whatever.
Well, what is the okay, real quick, let's dive into that. Like, people always say like, oh, you have eggs of a 25-year-old. Is that just a slogan? I mean, can eggs really be young like that? No.
Sorry, yeah. No, eggs are your age, you know, but the thing is like as you get older, we've found that the rate of aneuploidy, so every time our cells divide, and every time a sperm and an egg come together, it has to make divisions, right? And there are, it's like kind of like running a race, like a marathon or like and there's many checkpoints.
Yep.
And each checkpoint, there are errors that are corrected at each checkpoint as we're making the baby, as the embryo and as the egg and the sperm are making, there are checkpoints. And as you get older, the checkpoints become a little bit more defective.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we have, that's called aneuploidy, or, just abnormal chromosome numbers and just abnormal things that happen. So, at the age of really 35, they say the checkpoints start, really kind of messing up quickly. And
that's
so
why like
they
Down
want
syndrome goes up by 50%, and because the
all
chromosomes are just not.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So they just
That's
don't
why
exactly.
miscarriages happen too, because then your body knows that that's not a healthy embryo.
Exactly. So, so really, if you are supposed to go through menopause at the age of 50, and or let's say you're going to go through menopause at the age of 55, because you look so young, and maybe you have these great genes and your mom went through menopause older or whatever, then you're at the age of 33, and maybe you started your period later. Maybe you started your period at the age of 15 instead of me, like 9.
Mm-hmm.
So like your 33-year-old eggs might have a little better checkpoint, than mine do,
Got it.
But there's really, we tip it, all the studies, you just know the age. You can't
the age is the main factor.
Yeah, you just know people's age, and so
But you wouldn't discourage somebody that's maybe 36 or 37 or 38 or even 39 from freezing, right?
Absolutely not. I would absolutely encourage them to freeze if they do not have a partner, and I would 100% encourage them to freeze. I would encourage them to freeze for sure. They're like, they could be one of those people that have younger looking eggs or whatever, but even if they were like, 42 and they really didn't want to, it's hard because as the older you get, the more eggs. Yeah, and more we would encourage them to just go ahead and use donor sperm and try to get pregnant,
make embryos.
Yeah, and make embryos, or just like get pregnant through intrauterine insemination. But if they really didn't want to, if you have the ability to freeze your eggs, I would, no matter what age you are, I would definitely encourage you to do that, because lots of women have frozen egg, older frozen eggs, and they do great, and they have babies, and it's fine.
Well, we've learned so much from you today, and I just think that we need to follow you on Instagram, and you're teaching us as you're going through that process, right? What's your Instagram handle? Valerie Libby?
It's just Valerie Libby. VALERIELIBBY.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Awesome. Yeah. And then we'll have to do some Q&As like at the conference coming up.
I'd love to.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. Okay. Well, thanks so much for giving us some of your time today. I love this.
Thanks for having me.
I'm sure it's like time to do shots right now, right?
It is. It's 8:20. I should probably do my shots. Yeah.
Okay. We'll let you get to your shots, but have a great cycle, and we can't wait to hear more from you.
Thank you. Great to see you.
Bye.
Bye.